myself. Hi. Is it working now? Okay. Hello everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. Let's see who we have. Sorry, I tried to do something technologically at the very beginning and wasn't smart of me. I guess I don't even have the... Is the sound okay? It's not? Thanks everyone for being here. Donnie, Mistina, CH, Sheila, Dizzy, Jen. Hi, Madeline. Pokemom. Hello, Spring. Hi, Todd. Hi, Missy. Hi, Stevie. Hi, Charlotte. All right. Disney Nerd. Hi. Do I need to adjust anything sound-wise? Hi, Dawn. Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks everybody that participated in the mandala project with me. We're almost finished with our project. We end on the 31st, which is tomorrow. So thank you everybody for doing that along with me. I had a great time and I think it was really helpful. And next month, I don't have a specific project planned. However, I am super excited because we have a book club in our Discord now, and we read a book last month, and then we're going to try to pick a book for January and keep doing it. It's been really fun. And yes, I was just about to mention my shirt as well. My shirt is from the merch store. It says Suspect on it, the owl. And it is for those of you who maybe believe in the owl theories, different owl theories, different crimes. There are owls in many crimes, apparently, but that is available in our merch store. And you can get it in a different color than what I have. Oh, Madeline's wearing hers right now. That's pretty cool. You can get it in different colors as well. All right. So, like I start off every show, but now I fixed it so that my qualifications are in the description of every single video from now on. So I can just tell you, if you want to know more about my qualifications, you can go to the description of this video, where you'll be able to actually click on more about my qualifications, which are that I'm a drama therapist, which is a master's level professional, mental health professional. I don't prescribe medicine because I am not a doctor and I am not a psychologist, so I don't diagnose. So that's what I like to start out with, just so we all are on the same page, because today we're going to look through the lens of a therapist at what has happened in this last couple weeks, or it hasn't even been a couple weeks. It's been like, 11 days or something in true crime. So the very first thing that I was going to talk about today is, let's see. The Jodi Hildebrandt sentencing happened recently. I always think, like, are they so happy that their story comes out on this week, like no one's really paying attention to anything. It's kind of like how celebrities plan when they want like bad news about them or good news about them to drop. And I could assume that it'd be the same in true crime. Like you wouldn't really want your story to get tons and tons of attention if you are pleading guilty, like Miss Hildebrandt did, just like her partner in crime, Ruby Franke, did the week before. So I wanted to just go over this just a little bit because we did do a video about Ruby. Actually, she wasn't sentenced yet. Hello Spring. She was not sentenced yet. They will be sentenced on February 20th. They will both be sentenced on that same day. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the judge does in this case. But I thought we would go over a little bit since we did do a video and it is linked in the description box below. We talked about Ruby Franke on a Friday Night Psych episode. So Jay and I were on there. We were talking about her and the title was MOMFLUENCER or Monster. So both Ruby and Jodi were accused of 6 counts of felony child abuse. Trigger warning. I'm not going to go through like the very specifics. So if you want to, both of the plea bargains include descriptions of each of the counts. And it's very disturbing because, I mean, any type of child abuse is disturbing, but it's torture. So it's very disturbing. So please, take care of yourself if you do decide to read those. So I just want to kind of go through what the differences were between the two of them. Each of the 6 counts that they were charged with carries a possible prison sentence of from 1 to 15 years and a fine of $10,000. So Ruby plea bargained a couple of weeks ago, and she said that part of her plea, thank you, Charlotte, part of Ruby's plea, which is different than Jodi's, was that Ruby agreed to testify against Jodi. And in return for that, they would not be having input into her parole from then on. So, this is correct. Mandy says that there's a trigger warning for this. There's it's actually now proven, I guess, child abuse since they've admitted to it. And then there was, some religious coercion as well. So, and we're not going to expose the children's name in our chat. So, the 6 counts. So Ruby, her plea deal is different. She gets 4 counts. So the state took off 2 of them so that she would plea, or that was part of the plea. And then her additional thing was that she was to testify against Jodi. Then Jodi decides to take a plea, which her lawyer was very clear in saying in like the 4-minute hearing that she was actually the one that decided to plea first. And, she should, I don't know, get brownie points for that or something. But her plea agreement was a little bit different in that, she doesn't have to testify against Ruby in any way. And so her plea agreement also says immediately that she agrees to serve a prison term. So did Ruby's. So that automatically makes it so that there's not this whole like they're needing to do all these mitigating factors like the psychological exams and things like that. They don't have to be as thorough on those from what I understand because both defendants have already agreed that a prison sentence is okay with them for this plea. So Ruby's plea also indicated some things that Jodi was not a part of, but then Jodi's sentence or her plea talked about things that she was a part of that Ruby was not a part of. And so if you would like more detail specifically on the types of things that these children endured, please go directly to the PDFs of these plea bargains and you'll be able to see the details. They're horrific. So the thing that was very interesting to me is that I watched a couple of videos that were on, I'm trying to think who the first one I saw. The first one I believe I saw was on NewsNation. I have those also in the description box. But it is of Jodi Hildebrandt's niece. And she says that she filed a police report against Jodi in 2010 for abusing her. She was sent to live with Aunt Jodi because she was a troubled teenager. And, Jodi was very respected as a mental health professional. And she touted that, she was very good with difficult children. And she did some of the exact same things that she is accused of doing to Ruby Franke's children to her own niece. And her niece reported a lot of those things to the police. And I think somebody said in the chat earlier, this all happened in very heavy Mormon country. And so unfortunately, Jodi had a very good reputation, and this child was looked at as a troubled teenager, and she was not believed. And so now we are here with the same thing happening. Sarah says that she's so glad the babies don't have to testify or go through a trial, but hope they are both punished severely and don't get away with it by basically taking a plea. That's exactly what I thought when the plea deal happened. Like, you don't want the children to have to testify to what happened to them, because what happened to them is horrific. And they are basically having to be re-traumatized by facing their abuser and facing cross-examination and just facing the court process in general. So you don't want that to happen. However, probably a jury would be very stringent on both of these ladies because of the nature of the abuse being so severe. So we just have to hope that the judge is going to, in their infinite wisdom, hopefully, choose a really good sentence that fits this crime. Especially, with Jodi, this is something that has been repeated on other children, possibly her own children as well. Who knows how many other, witnesses would have come forward, etc., that she's done this to. And Jodi's lawyer in his presser after the hearing said that Jodi chose to plea like she's some, saint, because she didn't want to put the children through that. And just from watching so many Jodi videos and so many of the connections videos that her and Ruby made together, I just absolutely do not believe that after 1 month, she has changed her entire way of thinking when it comes to, basically that she's right and she knows the truth, and that the children were in distortion, and she was the one that was basically like bringing them towards the truth by these extreme types of punishment. So I don't believe that that's why. I think that she is a smart woman, and I think that her lawyer probably told her as well, like, you're going to do better if you plea than if you take this to trial, and they're not going to reduce, any of these charges. If you take it to trial, it's for 6 charges, and you're, going to be guilty on all 6, and then you could possibly get, whatever, 60 years or however much time. So I also really hope that the prison sentence takes into account that both of these women will likely be model prisoners, because they both are so good at being a chameleon and fitting in somewhere, and, seeing other people's weaknesses and glomming onto those and helping them to feel better about themselves. I think that both of them will really do well in prison. Now, will they like it? No, of course not. But I think that they will have followers in prison as well. They will, I mean, obviously it's more difficult for them because in women's prisons, child abusers are really looked down upon. There are a lot of women there that would like to spend time with their children and cannot imagine how, these women could do such a thing. But I also think that they're both very skilled at the spin game, and I think that they will be able to spin it. And, they are also in a part of the country where they have, a lot of people that have been raised in their background, indoctrinated into the Mormon church as well. Jodi and Ruby both attended BYU, and so we know that they were likely Mormons. We know Ruby was Mormon from the time that she was born. I'm not sure about Jodi, but she attended BYU for her bachelor's degree, so she was at least Mormon, as a very, very young adult. So, Brooklyn, this is an excellent question. We really don't know this yet. Kevin Franke moved to divorce Ruby immediately after the charges were filed and she was arrested. He also denies that he knew that any of these things were going on. He said that, she was isolated by Jodi and he was made to move out of the house, and that, so he's saying that he wasn't really into the know of what was happening. I have a really hard time believing this because I also watched so many of the 8 Passengers videos where he's absolutely a part of these appalling techniques of like not getting your kindergartner their lunch because they forgot it, and hoping that the kindergartner is uncomfortable and starving because that will teach them a lesson. And okay. Sorry, I saw a comment in here I was going to highlight. But so I don't know about what, Brooklyn, I'm not sure how they will decide that, because obviously, Kevin is saying that the kids should come to him. I don't know that they should necessarily. I agree, Real Happy. I do not think that he knew. I mean, he didn't know. There's no way he didn't know. Because also the oldest child who had moved out, a daughter, had said that she had called CPS, that she had called to report about her siblings. So I feel like that's a really flimsy excuse. Tire Toys. Do I think that there's a binding sexual component to the punishment because they were tying and restraining a lot? I don't know. Jodi especially has a lot of interesting quirks when it comes to sexuality in general. I mean, that is why she lost her license as a therapist, was because she broke confidentiality in order to inform on someone in the Mormon church, a man in the Mormon church who had told her that he had been looking at pornography. And she told the eldership about this, broke confidentiality, and, ended up doing a lot of damage to his life. And this seemed to be a trend with couples that were being counseled by Jodi, was that she was very hung up on separating the man from the marriage because he was typically having some sort of sexual sinning, which typically included, looking at internet pornography, etc. So she has some issues, and there is a lot of restraint that's included in the behavior that they did. So I don't know if that's necessarily for a gratification or for something that she's trying to, restrain within herself, something that she doesn't, is angry about within herself. A lot of self-hatred occurs in these types of religions where there is so much stricture around sexual expression. So I hope that answered that question. Yes, this is exactly what I am wondering as well. I am so wondering if they will end up ever having to be back in the custody of Ruby Franke before they are able to choose that as their own thing. Like if they want to go see their mom as adults, that's one thing. But I want to know, will they as minors ever have to be with her? Oh, Donnie says I have a 20 spot. Let me look. Somebody did a super chat. Oh, hello, Spring. Thank you so much. Oh, she did the fan character bouncing with heart-shaped ponytail and stars in their eyes. Thank you. I just love that picture of your doggo. So cute. So I am so curious about what is going to happen because like I was saying, if they are model prisoners, if they do a really good job in state prison, and Jay says that Dada Lisa also sent a $5 Venmo. Thank you. Madeline did too? Oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. Baby Bo herself has also sent a $5 Venmo. Thank you so much. She says she loves Saturday Psych with me. I love you being here. And I love doing this show. So I'm glad you guys are liking it. I definitely think that this is something that is good from, doing all the mandalas this month. I really feel like that has helped me be able to put myself out here a little bit more and do this. Okay. Oh, another super sticker. Good grief. Thank you so much, Miss Lisa. She's actually been doing the mandala project with us, and hers are so freaking beautiful. She's such a good artist. You got to check out her Twitter because she puts her mandalas up there. She sent the super sticker with the Sheba dog. Thank you, Miss Lisa. All right. Phil, I hope they don't, I hope they don't find any of our search histories because we're all in trouble. It seems like it's very stringent. Oh, I'm so glad she says she loves the mandalas. Good. I have been loving them too, and I think that they have contributed to me being able to do the show, so I'm happy. Oh, my goodness. Sarah, happy late birthday to Jude. Your little guy, he turned 3. We love you, aspiring court reporter. We love having you here. She sent a $20 super chat. We missed you this week too. She says she missed the community. Thank you so much. We love you as well. All right. So, exactly, Brooklyn. I often tell myself this, now that I looked this up the other day, you guys, I just got to thinking because Charlie had to do all of, this accounting, all of his phone calls are about I have to get my accounts in order. I have to sell all these houses, la, 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 la. This is what rich people have to do when they go to jail. They have to get their accounts in order. But I was like, what happens when someone like me goes to jail? What do I do about my student loans? So I Google what happens to your student loans when you go to jail? And then I was like, why did I freaking Google that? Because if I commit any sort of crime, they're going to be like, she was planning this way back in December of 2023. She, clearly wanted to know what was going to happen to her student loans. So I have no choice. I have to stay on the straight and narrow because my Google history will be so freaking embarrassing. All right. Now, okay, Jodi. Oh, okay. I wanted to go through just a couple of things, a couple of warning signs before we go to the next case that we're going to talk about. A couple of warning signs that I think that you see, and people saw this, people reported it. God bless people for doing this. Larry bless them. They went on, YouTube. They reported the videos of 8 Passenger. They had clips on Reddit. They had stuff Yes, I was worried. I'm worried about defaulting to the government on my loans if I go to jail. So anyway, I'm innocent is what I have to say. But one of the warning signs that was clearly happening in these 8-passenger videos was that gosh, I'm missing the word in my brain. Basically, the magnitude of the punishment was like if, you dynamite an anthill. It was beyond. Like, they literally take Christmas away from the 2 youngest children. Like, they are like, okay, you're getting 0 Christmas. And they stick to it. It was not like just like a threat, like, the elf on the shelf's going to tell Santa that you were not good and you're not going to get Christmas. No, this was like, you are not having Christmas. And then they made those 2, and it was the 2 youngest children, and it was the children who are, in this, the 2 youngest, they made them sit and watch the rest of the people in their family open Christmas presents on Christmas morning. Yes, the punishment did not fit the crime. Absolutely. And I see, thank you, Law Nerd Amber sent 5 coffees. Thank you. I will probably drink them all in one day, and it will probably be tomorrow. Because when I'm home for the holidays, I like to just drink coffee all day long. I feel like it's the one day where I'm just like, I don't have to be like, well, I shouldn't have any more. All right. So, yes, Missy Mayhem is saying, yes, for the littlest crap that they were doing, the littlest shit they were doing, like forgetting your lunch. And they were saying, the children were so selfish. And it slays me that this person that calls herself a therapist says that a child is being selfish, because I'm sorry, did you not take any child development, no human development courses in your entire, bachelor's and master's degree program that told you that that is exactly developmentally how a child is? They don't have a concept outside of themselves yet that is completely developmentally appropriate. You are not to just break their spirits, and that is what they are teaching. And so, yes, Dada Lisa, I did read. I'm not even going to say it out loud. You guys can read that. That was something that Jodi did to the youngest girl repeatedly. And that was just, it's insane to read these things that they did. So those are some of the warning signs. The punishment does not fit the crime, like Madeline said. It's too extreme. It's too often. And it was like they were so cavalier about it. And there was no ever any awareness of their part of it. Where, like a good parent, sometimes they're going to lose it on their kid and they're going to yell at them. And then that night they're going to be like, oh man, I really shouldn't have yelled at them about that. They probably just did spill the drink, like accidentally. It's not really their fault that they have crap fine motor skills right now. Or, I mean, that was when Jay lost it most recently. But honestly, that to me, maybe I'm lacking self-awareness. They deserved to have it lost on them, but they didn't get any punishments. So just that, like we were disappointed in them. So I don't think we were too hard on them. However, that's what people that are doing the right thing, they're looking back at their behavior and making sure that they did the right thing. And they're going to their children at times and apologizing to them if they do mess it up, which is fine. It's great. It's good. But in all of these connections videos, you are seeing the absolute opposite of that. Their party line is children obey your parents, or, the authority in the room, which was Jodi, for these 2 children. And so there was absolute no wavering from you do what I say when I say you do it, and you do it with a smile on your face. And if you're not smiling, then that's worth getting punished over. They have many videos where Ruby is saying, like they did something, but they didn't do it with like love in their heart or something. So she asked them to do a task and they're not happy about it. So she's mad and takes something else away from them. So there were many warning signs. Please look for those. These can especially be tied in with high control religions. So we are going to go to the next case. You guys, if you do not know what's going on with this, first of all, I have been down a rabbit hole. Holy bananas. Okay, hold on. So you got to make this. Sorry that I talked to myself out loud. Got to make that, minimize that, and then, oh my goodness, you guys. I went a little crazy on this timeline, but I have been down the rabbit hole. Holy cow. I know some of you have been too, because it's been all over the place lately, but I didn't really realize everything that was going on because, sometimes oh, thank you. Thank you. This one was a fun one to make. This is the first one I made. I was so happy about it because I needed this for myself. I did not really know the whole thing with this. We've had Michael DeWitt on, and we talked to Jen Wood. We talked to people in the Murdaugh case. We talked to Dr. Kinsey. We were like, it wasn't really great that, she puts out her, yes, thank you. Nerds unite. But she puts out the book. Like everybody was like, yeah, it was not good timing. It was kind of bad. And then, like Dick and Jim did the press conference and Jay covered that. And we were like, oh, Dick and Jim, your sunglasses don't fit, all this stuff. But now, recently in December, things have gotten wild, folks. Things are crazy in the Low Country again. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. First of all, want to tell you, as a legal matter, Becky Hill denies any and all accusations of impropriety in her office and jury tampering. She does, however, admit to and apologize for plagiarizing. We'll get to that. So on March, yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Of course, everybody sees what's going on Twitter. It's a buzz about this. So I wanted to I had to map it out for myself because I want to find out the facts. So Becky Hill is elected in 2020 the clerk of court for Colleton County. So she was the lady that read the verdict. If you remember her, she's the one that Judge Newman, stood up and thanked because, she had done such a wonderful job handling the media during this trial. So we start with, there are things that happen before my timeline, obviously, but I am starting with the conviction. So we start in March of this year. This is all happening, right? So March of this year, on the 2nd and the 3rd, Alec is convicted of murder of his wife and son, and he is sentenced the very next day. Then, we have some blissful time where we're like, yay, most of us anyway, are like, yay, justice was done. Wasn't this great? It's so nice, that the good guys won or whatever. Yes, Madeline, I will put this graphic on Patreon so that we will have it for the future. So, sorry, Penny is growling and it kind of distracted me. I was hoping we weren't being invaded. It's probably just an Amazon delivery. However, things do not stay quiet in the Low Country. Also, if you remember, Becky Hill was the one who told Judge Newman about the egg juror. She's the one who said, like, hey, there's this thing going on Facebook. There's this post that this juror was talking to their ex-husband. And so, oh, Penny, she just wants to be part of the show. Anywho, so she was also the person that like brings up the egg juror thing. And Newman says, like, I wish that you would have just brought this to me and that because she questioned the juror a little bit. Judge Newman was not, yeah, I really should have done that. And I forgot to watermark this. So if you're going to be an a-hole and copy it, then I guess you're going to be an a-hole, but please don't be one because it's not very nice. But before I put it on Patreon, I guess I'll do that. But then those people aren't the people who are going to be a-holes. But whatever. So moving on. Judge Newman was like, you should have come to me first. You should not have handled this on your own. But we were all like, well, no harm, no foul. They get the bad juror out, whatever. Then in June, things start to heat up again. And in June, the end of June, there was an ethics complaint filed against the clerk of court, Becky Hill. Then July 14th, another ethics complaint, number 2. Then Becky does the official publication of her book is on 7/20. Now, a lot of sites didn't have it on until like 8/1, but the official publication date was 7/20/23, which is wild because having that published date of July 20th when the conviction was just on 3/3 or the sentencing was just on 3/3, that is like so fast, so quick. She had a co-author as well. So she has put out her book. Then she hires Justin Bamberg and Will Lewis. And I have a little blurb up at the top here about them. They are going to represent her in these ethics complaints. And on 8/21, they draft a response. However, if you go and read the response, and you can read these, the easiest place probably for you to find these documents and all the 2,000 pages of emails is on Fitz News. Jen Wood made a page dedicated to the Murdaugh retrial possibility, and it has all the things that they FOIA'd for. And so if you want to go and read the PDF straight from, the Colleton County Courthouse, go there because it's right there and it's all like so organized. So within those documents, there are the attorney's response to these ethics complaints, which they call like baseless. There's no merit to them, etc. They were, they said that one was an ex-employee who had an axe to grind, and the other one was like her husband was friends with the other one's husband or something. That was the whole thing. It was basically that it was a conspiracy against Becky. And it was also that one of these people was saying they were going to run for county clerk in the next term. So at first it looks like, well, why are these people like picking on this woman who seemed like just the little beautiful Southern flower of South Carolina? She seemed to be nothing but sunshine and happiness. So why are they trying to bring her down? And that's kind of what everybody thought from the beginning, especially like because her co-author was coming out and defending her. Lots of people were coming out and defending her. Most people were coming out and defending her. There were not many people who were not coming out and defending her immediately. Babe, this is so untrue. Sunshine and happiness is not what people call you, honey. Joy stealer. I mean, some people have called him that after they heard his terrible, take on Christmas Vacation, the movie. And so when you go to read this, which you should read it because it is interesting. What's also interesting about it is I'm not sure, did Justin Bamberg and Will Lewis like accidentally cut and copy and paste like her things that she typed out in response, and just like they were like, she's great, like we're just gonna paste this on and send it out? Or did they make like a lot of typos? Because a lot of times in the response, it'll be like, my office did this, but it's talking about the clerk's office. It's not talking about the law office. So it's clear that maybe Becky wrote it and then they, pieced it together or something. But it has some problems. It also reads very much like it just keeps telling you how great of a person she is. Like it tells you that she teaches Sunday school. It tells you that, what her father did as a job. It tells you like that the people that she is accused of like misappropriating funds to like some bailiffs, like giving them extra hours. And it talks about one of the bailiffs is a single parent and the other bailiff is whatever. It was kind of like, yeah, I was doing these things, but I was doing them for good reasons, which she doesn't, of course, say she was doing them. She says like, there's an explanation for every single thing. And she is claiming that those are all within her realm of, it was okay. And a lot of times it's like, I checked with this person. Judge Newman gets his name thrown in there a couple of times. She's always like dropping about who she checked with. So, like on first blush, you can look at it, be like, okay, well, you sort of explain everything. And maybe because it's such a small town, that's the way things are done. And, whatever. Maybe that's exactly. Real Happy says justification is what it seems like. Yes, exactly. But you're like, maybe I'm a joy stealer and maybe I just don't know how these small towns work and it's an okay thing and she wasn't being nefarious. Then we all find out that they're going to have a press conference. They're going to have a presser in their sunglasses, the defense team of Alec Murdaugh. They are going to ask for a new trial. And all of us, I think, all of us that were from J-Bo Nation that had kind of, done the trial together, we were kind of like, this is banana sandwiches. Jim and Dick are making like a big deal out of nothing because, the egg jurors involved, we hear that. And, we hear there's affidavits, whatever. So they come out, they hold this presser and they accuse Becky Hill of jury tampering. Now, when they did this, the public, like you and I, we weren't aware that there were these 2 ethics complaints going on with her. We did know that her book just came out, but we had no idea about that. So, it was a little bit like, it was a little, like we didn't have all the information, or maybe we did, but nobody had it in a timeline or something. Or I didn't look at it as in a timeline. Yes, this was a watermelon sunglasses presser. Exactly. They all looked like their sunglasses were given to them from their nephew who is 7 years old, or that they picked them up at the Dollar Tree that morning because they were like, oh shit, it's going to be sunny at this thing. So they hold this presser. And of course, like everybody goes crazy because they're like, no way, there's going to be a new trial. There's just no way. She didn't do anything wrong. This is Dick and Jim. Dick and Jim are paying people to do all these things. And then, we had Bob Mott on and he was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Nobody would like risk their entire career to do these types of things. Like you have clients all the time that you don't win the case. And then you don't just like sabotage your entire life for that one client. Was basically what Bob was saying on our stream. And we were like, okay, even though we really don't like Dick and Jim, and he was like, yeah, even though you really don't like Dick and Jim, or you thought they were slimy, they're not paying people off. So that happened. And then we were kind of like, okay, we gotta kind of stay tuned. What's going to happen next? The defense team submits a 70+ page motion for a retrial based on jury tampering. And they don't just have affidavits in this thing. They have a couple affidavits from jurors. They don't just have affidavits though. They have communications. They have pages of Becky's book. They have, different things from different people. And so it's starting to look a little sticky. It's starting to look a little sticky, in my opinion. Then, not but 3 or 4 days later, holy cow, the state troopers pull up to her adult son's house, who also, by the way, worked in public service. He doesn't anymore. She's still working in her job, but the state pulls up and they arrest her adult son, Jeff, for wiretapping. And what was he wiretapping? What date was he wiretapping on? We don't know what the nature of the call that he wiretapped yet was. We do know that they also subpoenaed Becky's phone. They also subpoenaed her communications. So seems like it might be okay to say maybe they have something to do with Becky. But what really struck me was the date of the phone call that Jeff was spying on. He was tapping a phone on 7/20/23. That is after both complaints have been filed, and it just happens to be the publication date of Becky's book. I'm sure that's just a coincidence, though, like all these other things. So then, poor Clifton Newman, the honorable, wonderful Judge Newman, is like, I got to get myself out of this. So he recuses himself because, he doesn't want to have his legacy dragged down. He doesn't want to look like he's, trying to rule on something that he might have bias in. So that's wonderful. He does that. That's a good deed, I believe. I think it was good. People always say, you should want, if you're telling the truth, you should want, outside people to look at your story. You won't be scared of that. You're not worried about it. So they appoint actually, before they appoint that, I forgot, Duffy Stone, we all remember his name. He came up because he was part of the solicitor's office, and we all learned what a solicitor's office was, just like when we learned about what bows were. But Duffy Stone's office was handling the Jeff Hill thing, and then Duffy Stone sends a letter to AG Alan Wilson, who we also know because he did part of the did he do the recross on Dr. Kinsey or the redirect on Dr. Kinsey in the rebuttal case? We know who he is. He's the Attorney General of South Carolina. He gets a letter from Duffy Stone who says, I don't think we should be handling this Jeff Hill thing. I think we should pass it off to you. And so the people who were maybe out there saying this is Duffy Stone, he's trying to, do all this stuff because he looked bad and he's also cronies with Alex. So Duffy Stone was like, nope, actually give this to the AG. So the AG takes over the investigation of Jeff Hill on 12/4. They appoint a retired South Carolina Chief Justice, Jean Toll, I hope I'm saying her name right, to preside over Alec Murdaugh's efforts to secure a new trial to overturn his conviction. Then 2 days later, folks, okay, so on the 20th, and I've seen all the stuff. I've seen all the tweets. I've been on Twitter. I've seen it. I saw what people were saying. They were like, Dick was friends with this judge. He even wanted her to do some sort of auditing during the trial. Okay. So, that doesn't look good. So if you're following along, you can be like, well, that's no good. Maybe it is. Maybe it's Dick and Jim conspiracy. But then, holy bananas, a FOIA request comes through the press. The press obtains 2,000 pages of thousands of emails from Becky Hill's government account. Yes, we are right on that 2016 refrain of butthurt emails, folks. And they were a hot mess. There are a lot of things, and I linked the video below where Peter from the lawyer you know, he went through some of the emails and talked about why there were problems. And I really enjoyed his coverage because he's not really in this Murdaugh realm of people that seem to be at war right now. He's from the outside and he's just, kind of commenting as a lawyer how it should go with the clerk of the court. And it's not looking good. Like, she is clearly like using her resources and using her time and using things at her disposal to further herself, maybe to do favors for people for personal gain, yep, Peter does have good hair. We will always recognize a man with good hair on this channel because my husband has a great head of hair. All right, so this drops. This is like, you guys, I've read some of these things. They're not good. It's not good. It looks bad. The emails should have had basic redactions. I mean, yeah, probably. We all know now, like, some journalists and things are like, here's my cell phone number, and it's on there. So that sucks for them. And it's just like we always talk about in this channel, like, you don't think that your communications are going to be subpoenaed or FOIA'd for and just like presented to the entire world because you're like, hey, to the clerk of court, where can I sit as the, press representative from ABC News? Where are we sitting in court that day? You don't think that's going to like be on the internet for everyone to see. So I agree. However, the things that are said in the emails as far as like what she said, whereas like in November of 2022, yes, 2022, before the trial, she says that she's thinking about writing a book as well to another author, and maybe they'd like to partner on it, which is in direct conflict with what her lawyers said on 8/21 and what she has said all along on Court TV and other interviews, which was she didn't know she was going to write a book about this trial until she was smack dab in the middle of the trial. In fact, she didn't even think really about writing it until like she didn't talk to the person that she eventually ends up co-authoring with until the very last week of trial. So a little messy. Also messy, her co-author starts reading the emails and he gets to one that's suspicious. He gets to one where a person from the BBC, a reporter from the BBC, contacts Becky in March. I believe it was in March. I don't know that it was in March, but I believe it was either in March or January. And I don't know why I didn't write it down. However, some author contacts Becky and they're like, hey, here's the beginning of an article that I'm writing about the Alec Murdaugh trial. She ends up not publishing the article for whatever reason at the BBC. Whatever. Co-author Neil Gordon recognizes the article. The article is 12 pages of preface of the book that he has his name as co-author of. So he's like, whoa, I'm going to have to back the train up. And previously he had already gone on Court TV. He had gone on like all these things. He's like, Becky Hill couldn't have been pressuring people. She's so soft-spoken. She's such a, steel magnolia. She's a Southern Grace. She's all this and that. So like he then had to be like, oops. Turns out she was plagiarizing this book, or at least part of it. So he says him and his wife's part photographer, they, at their own expense, along with Becky, self-published this book. So he's out some money, and I don't think he's going to be happy about it. He's also not happy about his reputation being, smeared like this because now he's made a book with the plagiarizer. So he contacts, the press. He contacts people and he's apologizing for the plagiarism. He says, I'm taking my name off this. I will never collaborate with this person ever again. He's like scorched earth. She is terrible. So, yes, she is beauty. She's grace. She's Miss United States. Exactly. That's how the party line was before the emails, but the emails, they were like, this boat started to sink bad, and there was no bailing the water out. So he says she's plagiarizing. He says we're going to pull the book because that's the honorable thing to do. We can't have this book, being in publication. It can't have my name on it. He tells his wife to pull down the web page. She's pulling down this Facebook page. It's like this whole thing of like just damage control. Justin Bamberg puts out a statement that Becky is taking full responsibility for plagiarizing passages, which according to Neil Gordon, it was like 12 pages. But according to this statement, it was passages of her book. And she's, really ashamed of herself and really sorry. And she's sorry to that reporter, but that she was under a lot of pressure to, people have said she was under pressure by the publisher, but we all know it was self-published. So I don't know if she was like maybe trying to impress Neil Gordon or what it was, but she plagiarized the foreword of her book. So now the next thing that's coming up is that we have this retrial coming, or not retrial. We have a hearing to determine if there will be a retrial based on the allegations of jury tampering by Becky Hill. And when we very first heard this back on 9/5, I was like, this does not hold water. This is not going to be a thing. And now that I have seen all this and I have laid this out in the timeline, I am just flabbergasted. Because you guys, like, she's messing up like big time. And she's doubling down and saying like, I didn't do anything. Well, I did plagiarize. And part of the problem is, as we know with exactly, can you imagine how much stuff they got away with in Colleton County? Yes, a lot of these things were like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, kind of. And in the response to the complaint, it was like, well, of course we had to do that because that person's a single mother. Well, of course we had to do that because it says that you can give yourself bonuses in the, bylaws. So we did give ourselves bonuses. So this is my exact feeling right here, Missy Mayhem. Yikes. This is so crazy. Or if I were British, I might say, what bloody shambles. That wasn't very good. I'm sorry, Charlotte. I'll really work on that. I actually have Siri speaks with an English accent on my phone and has for like 5 years, just so I could try to like train myself to have a British accent in case I ever need one for like an audition. I will be able to just like talk like Siri. So true. I am always pressuring you. That's true. Yes, exactly. Real happy. Pressure from who? Herself? Exactly. Like, what the heck? You're self-published. We don't fall for that. It's not like, oh man, they were going to take the what do they call it? The advance away if they didn't hurry up. No, there isn't a retrial scheduled yet. There is a hearing to determine if there will be a retrial. But here's what I think. This is what I am going to posture about this whole thing before we go on to our last and final installment of this Saturday psych session. Through the lens of a therapist, it looks a little bit like to me that somebody, you know how they say like, oh, that person is, a thief. And a lot of times you'll see them get, they do petty theft and then they end up, and then you're like, holy cow, how'd this person like end up stealing $300,000 from a church? Well, when you look back, there are a lot of small crimes along the way that may have been overlooked because the person was such a nice person or such a good person. But when we do things wrong, like lying, cheating, stealing, these things activate our amygdala, which is like our center of our brain that's like, bah! telling you like, it's an emergency, everything's going to crap, do something. And if we can sit through the discomfort of that and make it through that time, we're basically teaching our brain like, okay, I can make it through this. So I lied. I mean, it's not this conscious. You're not like doing this consciously, but you are training yourself to like be better at lying and not have any sort of reaction or conscience, or feelings of guilt when you're doing smaller things that you may think like she said, for the greater good. You're doing these things that you think are, her whole thing is always like she wants to make South Carolina look so good. It wasn't about herself. It was about making South Carolina look good. So when people think that they have a reason, like telling your mom she doesn't look fat in the pants or whatever, when people think they have a reason, they can tamper down that response a lot more easily. And so they become more brazen. And I do not think it gets more freaking brazen. Like, I can't even imagine, and it might just be because I'm like a nerd and kind of an academic, but plagiarizing is like the lowest of low thing that you can do if you are a writer and she wants to write a book and then she freaking steals the book. Like, she steals the foreword to the book, the intro to the book that you wrote. So, yes, that's exactly right. Your moral compass starts to shift. Exactly. But to me, like, when you're saying, yes, I plagiarized this book for the entire nation of anyone to read, and I threw my co-author under the bus, and I threw, his money and his everything, I risked that just to plagiarize this book. Then when you're saying I didn't say, oh, don't be fooled, look at his body language, or, you guys will be done with this quick or whatever, that doesn't seem like a far jump to me. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I think the truth will come out in the hearing, and I think the truth will come out in these ethics investigations. Like, they have the emails, so they're going to see like how she used her office, etc. But it does not seem like it did when this very first was leveled against her and everyone was in this state of like, oh my gosh, she's like the Southern sweetest woman. She's just this gentle woman. She opened up, she kept saying in her emails, I want to roll out the welcome mat to South Carolina. And so I'm very, as the kids would say, she's very sus at this point. I really don't, she might have gotten away with a lot of things. She's only been elected as the clerk of court since 2020, but she was a longtime court reporter. So she worked with all these people for a long time. It's not like she just like came in and got, had to meet everybody right away. I agree, Sarah. Her credibility is in the toilet. You cannot be like, I didn't do something, but be like, but I did plagiarize my book. So, yes, Missy Mayhem says, Becky's sus as hell. And she is. She's sus, you guys. Not to mention that it may have been pretty tacky to write the book in general. Like, especially that quickly. Like, maybe, like, let a year go by. Or don't be the clerk of court anymore and then put the book out. Or whatever. So, that is like the rabbit hole that I have been down for the past, 3 days or something. Because I wanted to know the exact timeline of all these things. Because the statements come out later because, we FOIA, or the press FOIAs for things. And so it comes out later, but then you have to be able to put it like into, like, I had no idea what 720 meant, that Jeff Hill listens to this thing on 720, until I realized that I put it all in the timeline and it's like, oh, wait a minute. That also happens to be the day that her book was published. That's interesting. So All speculation, of course, and Hill denies all and any accusations of impropriety in her office. So this is all alleged. But we're about to find out, and it's going to be in January, so we don't have to wait that long to find out what is going to happen with, is Alec Murdaugh going to get a new trial? Now, does this mean anything about Alec at all? No, and it doesn't mean anything about his guilt either, in my opinion. But he deserves to have a fair trial, just like everybody does in the freaking Constitution. So, we may have Alec Part 2. All right. So, moving on to my very last installment of this. I did go way longer than an hour. I hope that you guys are not disappointed. You're really getting your money's worth of $0 today. Okay, so press that and then go to this. The other thing that happened, Steve put out a video also, so go check that out on Publicly Buzzed. The 1122 King Road property was demolished. This is where the crime of the Idaho 4 happened. And sadly, this is where these 4 students in the photo lost their lives: Ethan Chapin, Maddie Mogan, Zena Kernodle, and Kaylee Gonsalves. And there was a lot. Twitter was a twit, was, a buzz again with stuff about this because there's no trial yet, but they leveled this house. And I mean, they leveled it in like a series of, it took seriously like 2 seconds. If you watch the demolition, it was very sad to me. And so people have looked at this from many different ways. I've looked at people's tweets on this on Twitter. I saw Bob's tweet. Bob's tweet was from, a lawyer's point of view. And Bob said the prosecution did not object. The defense did not object to the house being leveled. So therefore, it can be leveled. And he has a great point. And then I saw Cheryl McCollum's tweet, and she's looking at it through the lens of an investigator. She's CSI. And she said, no freaking way. They should not have done this. Like, they needed to leave it up. You can't account for everything through a 3D rendering. So I thought to myself, what do I think about it therapy-wise? The university also has their side of it, which is, that the students need to move on and they can't just be walking past this murder site every single day. It's not good for the university. Well, what I think about it is that I read the statement that you can see here by Kaylee's family. Also, the Mogan family was in agreement with this statement by Kaylee's family, and the Kernodle family was in agreement. The Chapin family, who oftentimes have, distanced themselves from media and from things, said that they were okay with what the university did. But the other 3 families said absolutely not. They did not want it demolished before trial. And so you can read the statement from Kelly's family and see, kind of what they said. Yes, you're right. Pokemon just pointed out that Joe Jackalone did a really good short on this as well. And it is out there. Please follow the Sarge, True Crime with the Sarge, Joe Jackalone, as well. He is one of our good friends on this channel. All right. So I was thinking about it, and I read this statement. And to me, the most important thing is the victims in a crime. And 3 out of the 4 victims' parents do not want this to happen. It is sort of a human thing, if you think about that, we have sort of a need in ourselves. I know Brooklyn's in here, and she works in the funeral and death not the death industry. I don't know how you say what your title is, Brooklyn, but she works around that. And we have a need to put things together in our brains and to piece things together and have closure. And when something happens like a homicide or a car accident, you will oftentimes see that there is a importance put on the place that that person was killed. You'll see, like roadside crosses or little memorials from people that had car accidents. And licensed funeral director. Yes. Okay, now I'll know. You will see these things from people. That is something that makes their grieving process easier, and it helps them to make sense of what happened. Because we can never make sense of things. We can't make sense of these things. But it doesn't matter that we can't make sense of it, because that is all your brain is trying to do when you are grieving. And something happens that you did not control and you have no way to find which way is up. Your brain is begging you, put these pieces together. That's all you can think about. And so it's so sad to me that I also read earlier that Kaylee's family wanted to be able to go into the house at one point in time, and they were not allowed because it was an active crime scene at that point in time. Now, of course, they are not allowed to go in when it's an active crime scene. I understand that. Same things happen with school shootings. The parents from Uvalde and the parents from Marjorie Stoneman, they were not allowed to go into the school where their children were murdered until it was not an active crime scene. But in both of those cases, the parents did go into the school, and it was important to them to do that. Now, it was their choice. Nobody who shoved them into the school and said, you have to go here. I'm sure some of them decided not to and did not think that, that's something that, hopefully yourself psychologically a little bit to know if what you're imagining is worse than what you're going to see, or if you would rather not know, which I think we see in this case. We see Ethan's parents saying, it's okay with us. We go with the university. That's fine. They don't have that desire. But we see these other three families who have the desire to keep that home standing at least, and they understand they don't own the home. They understand that. Just like these parents in the school shootings, they understand they don't own the property. It's not like when someone dies in a property that your family owns and you can, make decisions like, Paul and Maggie's family could go to Moselle because they owned Moselle. But these parents were never, ever allowed that. And we also find from studies of grief, which I have a couple linked in the description box, that this being able to go into a place like this, even though it sounds alarming and it sounds terrible, and I'm sure it would be awful, but it reduces ruminations. It makes you have a feeling of closeness to your loved one, which is why we see people going to a grave, people going to a, roadside place where an accident happened. They feel close to their loved one in that spot, and that may be needed for a closure. There's not ever true closure, but that may be needed to close a spot of your brain that can't process it yet. It helps the family member regain a sense of control, which is freaking huge in a homicide. And it helps promote acceptance of the situation. Also, there are not a lot of people saying that they want less information about their loved one's homicide. They're not out there being like, no, give me less information. That's just really not a lot. It's a very small minority of people that are like, hey, I don't really want any information about this. Most people want more and more information. Of course, there are people that deal with this where you say, you have a victim's advocate who go like they did with the parents of Uvalde. They do these things. They have a victim's advocate, just like they would have somebody sit down with you if you wanted to view either the body of your loved one, or if you wanted to view like autopsy photos, they have someone sit with you and they talk about the risk of the trauma that you may feel from doing that versus the, trauma that you may feel from never knowing and wondering and your brain making that stuff up. So, it's a balancing act. And that's why we have people that work in victim advocacy so that they can do those kinds of things. So it was sad to me to see that from Steve, Kaylee's dad, that he wanted to go in there and he was never allowed to go in there. It really upsets me because as a parent, you are there when your child comes into the world. When they take their very first breath, you are there. And as a parent, and I know if you guys are parents, you feel the same way. If your child is taken from you before you, that is unnatural. And you would want to be in the spot, in the place where they died. I think that's a very natural feeling. Okay, I did not expect that emotion to come out. But it did. I didn't have the crying gum. And Charlotte makes an excellent point. This is so difficult. It's tough to accept decisions being made about your child without your consent. They already have so much control taken from them by what Brian Kohberger did, and now they feel again like they're being victimized by the university being like, oh, we need to move on. People don't really want to look at this house. So, we've got to bowl it over. Now, do I think it's good that eventually it's bulldozed? Yes, absolutely. I do think that because I don't think anybody would probably want to live there. It would become something that people might want to like be tourism and those types of things. I think that's great that they're doing it. However, it didn't have to be. This is just like, it's only been 1 year. It's very, very fresh. So, I said I linked the studies that I had in the video. And another thing that people said with the school shootings, a lot of the parents said that seeing the factual information was important to them. Like how, the staircases were, or how far away they were from a door or a window. That really helped the parents in these situations be able to accept why their child may have been the person that, didn't get out or whatever. But I think it's so important that if people want information, they're allowed to have it as victims, and that they are able to learn about the scene. So those were a couple more things from that study. I just know that I feel this exact same way. The families, and I feel like they represented this too, Brooklyn, in their statements. They say they will have more questions than answers because of this decision. They will have questions that they feel like they can never answer because they demolished the house before the trial, and because, if they wanted to be able to go in. They never even were allowed to get their loved ones' items from that specific spot. They took everything, put it in a U-Haul, took it to an off-site location, and had the parents like go through the things there. So very difficult to really wrap your brain around that it happened at that point in time, because this was very, very early on that they, were giving belongings back to them. And it must have been so hard to really believe that it even happened to their child, because their bodies definitely weren't, being released yet, because there were the autopsies in this, and they weren't able to really see anything to prove it. It would definitely, your brain would be saying, this isn't right. You would be in denial right away. And I agree. I hope that Brooklyn says that, God forbid, this creates doubt. Hopefully this doesn't create doubt if he is guilty that if he is guilty, then he should be punished. So that's the last thing that I was going to talk about this week that happened in the last few days. I have some ideas for some more shows that are coming up, so I'm excited about that. We are going to have Steve is going to have on Kick. He's going to be having like watching the Twilight Zone marathon, which Jay and I always watch on New Year's. We love to watch the Twilight Zone, so I think it'll be even more fun that we can watch it together with all of you on Steve's Kick channel. Publicly buzzed. I mean, it's not just Steve's channel, it's Steve and Dan's channel. So check that out because that's coming up, and that will be kind of like the end of. Thanks, Dizzy, for putting that in the chat. Thanks, mods, for being here. Like, there's so many, I see so many little blue wrenches in the chat. I love that. So good to see. So that will be a little thing that we can do together during the holidays before regular streaming kind of starts back up again. But do I have commentary on Miss Becky's fashion? No. Although she definitely is making some statements. And if she goes to trial, you bet your butt I will be talking about her fashion for sure, because she will definitely have some looks. I am sure of it. So yes, and Fashion Justice will be coming back. I'm going to do a year in review of some of the best fashion that we've seen in court this year that I'm excited for. And then, we are going to be able to get back to the Young Thug trial. And the fashion is just unmet in that trial. So I'm so excited for that to get started again. Also, because I think it needs to get started again, because in my opinion, I am leaning towards the troll anthem, I guess, which is Free Thug. Every time they come in, they just write Free Thug. But I am kind of like, if they don't show me something soon, I'm on that bandwagon with them. Pokemon, great question. My daughter and Dawn, if she's still here, have asked me about this. Gypsy Rose was released from prison this week. And so I do want to do a show about Miss Gypsy Rose. I think that would be a good show for us a good case for us to look at. So thank you all so very much for being here. Can't wait to see you next time. And I will see you around. I'm sure we will all still be in our researching rabbit holes until the regular streaming comes back. Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Bye. Oh, that's awkward. And then I can't find the not be live anymore button. Finish.